All right, ladies and gentlemen, I presume you've either um, decided you want to stick around for a little bit of an introduction to the Law and Order course for summer enrichment, or you can't figure out how to exit. Either way, you're now here, but you are free to go if you're just trying to finish up in the chat room. But I am really overwhelmed and very, very surprised by the amount of students who have signed up and have joined and are here right now. But I'm also impressed because we have so much to be doing. There's been a lot of learning loss. We're going to mitigate that. And I use that word intentionally right now, that word mitigate. This is a legal term, and it's actually a term that we'll use when we discuss the assignment one, what is murder? But let me just ask right now, after I admit Isaac Ramirez. Isaac is entered. So what does the word mitigate mean? Is that a word you've heard before? Anybody familiar with that word? New word for to make it less of a sorts. I see. I have to pay attention to the chat room. I have to pay attention to the cat coming and going. This cat is mitigating its losses and out. So in the law, there is a basic theory. And the theory is when you suffer damage in general, you don't get to just say, I'm a victim, I get to suffer as much damage as can be done. For example, you're living in an apartment and there's a leak. You got a leak in your apartment. So you don't get to just sit there as the tenant and say, well, it's leaking. I'm gonna call management, and management isn't answering their phone, so look at this leak. What do you think you have an obligation to do? What's the word? Mitigate. So if you can in some way plug up the leak, if you can turn off the running water, you have an obligation to do that, to put a cap or lower the amount of damage that's being done. Does that seem like a reasonable thing to do? You don't get to just sit there and say, well, it's leaking, the guy never came and turned off the water. Well, you may not have to be able to fix the leak yourself, but you have to mitigate, to try to prevent the water from causing as much damage as is possible. So one of the things that we're going to be doing here is mitigating the loss of learning that's occurred over the past few months. And that's why I'm so excited about getting to teach this material right now. So the first assignment, this assignment is really cool. I know a couple people have already done it. And it's about the shipwreck that I talked about in the larger meeting. And you get to analyze the questions that are being addressed. But let me get a sense of who the students that are here are. Can you raise your hand if you are enrolled in the Law and Order course? Looks like a couple people. Quite a few people. And over here, I got 2 screens. Great. So very nice. Of those of you who are either enrolled or not enrolled in the course, how many of you are interested in mock trial in one form or another? Cool. So in regard to mock trial, have you seen the first thing I posted on the classroom? or are we starting brand new today? So can I give you a basic rundown of mock trial? Who is brand new to mock trial? Okay, so let me spend just a couple minutes on mock trial as I kind of introduce you to the different facets of the course. So mock trial, we started 2 years ago. And the first year we had a student who won some awards, and it was great, and we learned a lot as a program. Last year we had our two first wins, and we missed the playoff round by 1 point. We missed it by 1 point, but we did great, and we were the strongest team from Santa Ana Unified School District. So this is a situation where you are like a legal team, and you have a case, and you go and you present it against another school that is the opposing side. So if it's a murder case, you may be the lawyers and the team that is trying to convict somebody of murder. Or you might be on the other side going against another school that's trying to convict somebody of murder, and you're trying to get them off because they were really innocent. It all takes place in the courthouse. You all have roles you have to play, and you just have to really demonstrate how bright and intelligent and confident you are. It is so much fun. You learn so much. You learn everything that happens in a courtroom. But what's that going to look like this year? I don't know. Maybe social distance legal. They don't even have real cases right now in court, civil cases, because of the social distancing that's having to happen. But we're seeing that courts are slowly opening up. So the first thing you can do that would be really helpful and useful is if we utilize the resources from the last year's trial, because we won't get the new material until middle of August or end of August. So I've assigned like a couple pages that are just the fact pattern in the case. So just read those pages. I think it's pages 7 to 9. And tomorrow we'll spend about 10 minutes going over those facts and laying out what the case is. But yeah, person is dead and someone's accused of murder, which makes me return back to the assignment on the shipwreck that I want to talk about tomorrow. But you get a lot of questions that you need to work through about whether the people, when they drew the lots, because they drew the lots, if that justified someone having the right to kill the other person, especially if they resisted. But they killed the guy and then they ate him. And it makes me wonder, how did they eat him? They're on a raft. They couldn't cook him in any way. What did they do? They just bit into him? It's too bizarre. But that's the hypothetical. Which isn't a hypothetical. It's based on stuff that really happened. So we'll look at vignettes from the law. The next vignette, I'll give you a heads up, is involved a person who is seriously injured by an assault in a situation that was in front of many other people, and people didn't come to the person's aid. And we'll look at what kind of responsibilities people have about that kind of situation and what obligations there are there. So we're going to keep those vignettes going, but we're also going to look into mock trial a little bit. You all basically expressed a serious interest in that. So get those pages read, and we're going to look at things that are happening in the world. And I'll give a brief little lecture about the most significant things happening in society right now. So we'll talk about the pandemic, we'll talk about the protests, we'll talk about the economy, we'll talk about jobs, and we'll talk about whatever other developments happen. So that's basically how the course is gonna run. As I start to get to know you and see where your interests are, we'll be able to adjust and shift. And it's going to be my pleasure to be giving you points for the fall for all the work that you create and that you do. So welcome. I'm happy to take some questions now. The way it'll run before I do is the mornings 10 to 10:30 will basically be me talking and updating you on things that are happening in the world and where things are at. I'll give you a little lecture too about government and politics, because you'll want to be getting a head start in that, because I know you're all taking that. And then from 10:30 to maybe 10:45, 11, we'll do mock trial. And then as part of that time, I'm open for questions and discussion on things we've been doing. So not as formal as Mr. Conover's. And in regard to Mr. Larson's, we're not building towards a major big project at the end. It's more just daily things that are going on, nuggets of knowledge and learning. And so with Matt, Mr. Conover, you're developing math skills. With Mr. Larson, you're building toward a big major project. And with me, you're just each day learning pieces of knowledge that will help you as you move into the fall semester, have such a head start and have mitigated a lot of the learning loss from March till now. You like how I brought that all the way back and was able to conclude my lecture right now with the word that I started with? Because I want you, as you move into the shipwrecked sailors, I want you to think about that term mitigation. And as you answer the questions, I will give you double bonus points if you can work that word into one of your answers. Okay? So I'm here. I'm going to stay on for the next 5 to 7 minutes and answer questions. But the first thing I'm going to do is stop the recording. That's one of the benefits of coming live, is you will get to ask questions and or respond to questions I ask. So thank you very much for joining us on the recording. If this is how you've watched this, join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. for our full discussion of the shipwrecked sailors.